So anybody who's been watching NEWSPASTY knows I like to pick on Times Radio because Times Radio is special. They usually get on someone special who does ejaculate face. And so when you're looking to do a show like NEWSPASTY, you definitely want a lot of ejaculate face. What's happening now? Oh, look at this guy. What type of face is that? I don't know. You be the judge. Welcome to NEWSPASTY. I'm Johnny Federal.
The evidence is they didn't intend to take quite this many. They didn't intend to take the range of people, the older people, the babies. They didn't intend to do all that. They lost control of their operation as soon as it.
They didn't intend to take this many. What how is he going to come up with this sort of like? How's he going to sell this one to me? I'm not. So Hamas, he knows, he has information that Hamas didn't intend to take this many hostages. Surely they would intend to take as many hostages as possible. Surely this is a thing. But apparently no, they didn't intend to take this many hostages.
Began because they got much further past the border post than they expected to get, and the whole thing became
that's because they were let in.
Terrorist attack, which was brutal and completely beyond the pale of humanity, and they just went berserk.
Wait one moment. Okay, you can't. This guy his analysis of this is bizarre. Is bizarre. I am not sure this guy is in the right world, and it suggests to me that this is a professional jobby, that this is a change of narrative here. Some sort of change in narrative. This is really weird. I think I in hearing this. Okay, let me explain to you what is going on inside my meat and pastry up there inside the hell that is my mind. Right, I think that this man here is ex-military. Maybe I've seen him before on the NEWSPASTY, but anyway, he's ex-military. By the looks of things, I would say he's an analyst. He analyzes. I can't say it. He analyzes situations. He's probably a consultant, a military consultant nowadays. Probably working mainly private as a contractor. That's what I would assume. But the idea that they lost control of the attack. Now he said a couple of things there. He used the word. Oh, wait a minute. Is that ejaculate face too? It does look like ejaculate face. Anyway, he used the word spontaneous. Okay. Firstly, spontaneous. It was either planned, intricately planned, which is exactly what it looks like, or it was spontaneous. It can't be one or the other. Now, there's 2 points that I want to make here. First of all, if they're changing the narrative now to it being an organized, planned, and focused attack, like the narrative's been so far, to it being a spontaneous attack that was just planned a few weeks before, it would suggest that they're trying to make you not look like the planning so much, which then would say that there's probably got some people involved, some dogs in that fight. They're in trouble. They've exposed themselves in some way or t'other, if you know what I mean, being involved. Now, the second point I want to make is where he's saying you don't expect to get that far into Israeli territory. Well, of course they didn't expect to get that far into Israeli territory, because the IDF have one of the most advanced technological forces in the world, and there's no way that they weren't noticed. There's no way. This keeps coming up over and over again. So why would you need to change that narrative? Well, you want to make it look like, you want to start asking questions about it. But what's the neck? And I think there's a third thing here. I'm trying to, my brain's trying to comprehend it at the moment. But there obviously has to be a phase now of negotiations, hasn't there? There's got to be some push internationally to stop this from continuing like it is, because it's brutal. It looks awful. It makes the people not want to support other things that the international establishment are doing if they're supporting Israel, and puts more pressure on Israel being held to account. And eventually international pressure pressure on Israel being held to account could lead to a troublesome country here or there pushing for something internationally which could cause Israel a lot of trouble and make this house of cards come tumbling down, because eventually it's going to come tumbling down. But to reset within terms of peace, you need negotiations. Is that correct? Do you agree with me that when you make a pasty, you need meat and you need pastry? You need the negotiations in a peace talk. There must be, the peace is the pasty, peace talk is the pasty. There's encapsulating in all the other way around. I always get my pasty analogies mixed up. You get used to that. Always suspect that the meat is the pasty in my is the pastry in my analogies. Anyway. If you need negotiations, then you need two sides to speak. Is that correct? I think it is. And that means you've got Israel, yeah? You got Israel. And who else? Who are you going to speak with? Well, it's not the Palestinian Authority who have any control over Hamas, really, is it? So it's Hamas. So now you've got to start changing how people see Hamas. Because if you work through logically, the only way as a member of the international community, you're going to get successful peace negotiations in Israel is if you stop dehumanizing Hamas and humanize them. Make them normal people and start to take a bit of that punch away. Because Israel has applied that punch. It doesn't work for negotiations. And they know that. That's why they've applied the punch. But the rest of the outside world won't necessarily go with that. So, am I reading too much into this? Maybe I am. But I think those things, whatever, whether or not they're what Michael Clark is saying here, those things are to be considered for the near future of this developing crisis. Now, let's listen to some of what he said again.
Lost control of their operation as soon as it began.
They lost control. Hamas lost control. Hamas lost control.
Because they got much further past the border post than they expected to get.
Because they got much further past the border point than they expected.
And the whole thing became a sort of spontaneous terrorist attack, which was...
It was already... What? So they weren't going over for a terrorist attack. Because if it was spontaneous, suddenly became a spontaneous terrorist attack. What was it before? Was it a terrorist attack before? I don't understand how logically his argument makes sense when you listen to his words.
Brutal and completely beyond the pale of humanity, and they just went berserk.
Beyond the pale of humanity. Well, there's a lot to be said for that. And every single end of a sentence, he does ejaculate face. It's amazing. My God, man.
The point is, everybody wants a hostage deal for obvious reasons. I mean, the families in Israel have been in torment about this, and the people of Gaza have been...
So you're going to get the Israelis are not only being pressured internationally, they're being pressured internally to negotiate. And negotiations means that you have to have peace between two sides in some way, and you have to bring them to the table. Hamas want to be able to say stuff out loud. Israel don't want them to say stuff. If the outside world and people within Israel are going to have to start softening the image of Hamas within rhetoric.
Suffering grievously. So the idea of a hostage deal relieves some pressure on some of the families and gets some aid in, and it's a 4-day ceasefire, which will, in theory, run till tomorrow, Monday, and it might go on longer. Netanyahu has said that he might be prepared to extend the ceasefire for each day that Hamas releases 10 more hostages. So
that'll only last as long as it lasts.
If all keeps on going well, and there's lots that can go wrong, by the end of Monday, it's possible that 50 hostages will be released. If the deal is then extended for another, say, 5 days, which is what Netanyahu has talked about, there could be 100 released. And 100 out of 230 would be a great relief, but of course, it's a bittersweet thing. The issue...
I mean, before he says his issue, and again, ejaculate face, that's amazing. Michael Clark, constantly, he's got that disease where you ejaculate every 7 seconds. Anyway, so, where does this lead? What, Hamas give up all the hostages and Israel just leave Gaza? I don't think Hamas trust Israel. I don't think Israel trust Hamas. I don't think any of this leads that way. I think this leads to more violence. This only leads to more violence, which, yeah, suits perpetual limited warfare.
That I draw attention to in what I've written is that this has reversed Netanyahu's previous policy. Before this breakthrough, Netanyahu was saying that the best way to free the hostages was to keep up the military pressure, keep pushing
yeah. Keep pushing Hamas into, keep bombing civilians and punishing Palestinian people for a group that was created by proxy by Israel to get rid of Palestinian socialist organizations in the 80s. That isn't very fair. On a scale of not fair to fair, that is definitely not fair.
To the corner militarily, and we'll rescue those hostages that we can, and we'll try to do a deal at the end of the process for the others when Hamas is in desperate straits militarily. Now, that policy has been reversed by pressure from the international community, in the United States, to say, no, let's have a pause. So now the offensive is on.
Let's have a humanitarian pause, like Keir Starmer says. Oh, my God. That's, I mean, if I pause it and get one ejaculate face, that's a bonus for a NEWSPASTY. But, I mean, this is just insane. I mean, don't look at the screen. It's almost pornographic. Michael Clark's face is almost pornographic. Nearly every pause. I'm gonna laugh all the way through this now. Okay, stop. Right, get your focus and attention back. Think about the pasty.
Hold while we do this deal, that may last for 9 days. And I think it might be quite difficult for Israel to restart the offensive.
Yeah, of course it will.
Pause does last beyond Monday for 9 days. And when it does restart the offensive, the Israelis have got a different sort of problem, because they've now got southern Gaza with 2 million people crammed into it, with I was working it out, a population density which is 40% greater than more than Greater London.
Wow. It's the most. Oh God, that's the only non-ejaculate face, unless it was a sad ejaculation. That is crazy. That is crazy. But Gaza's already the most populated place on Earth, I believe, and that's only going to push more. And they've got southern Gaza. Now, the Gazan people, they've destroyed. Have you seen the rubble? They've just destroyed building after building. It's been a demolition program. Every single every single bordering town has been wiped off the map. They're just destroying it. It is a genocide. It is ethnically cleansing an area. Get all of them out and drive them south.
And that's a real problem.
That is a real problem. And Michael, it's interesting what you say there about the kind of pressure and where the pressure moves to, because from a purely sort of human/humanitarian point of view, it's very easy to look at this situation and say, well, why wouldn't you just keep going until all the hostages are released?
Yeah, and the fact is that all the hostages won't be released.
Yeah, of course, all the hostages won't be released. That wouldn't make any sense whatsoever, would it? But what are you going to do? What you're going to do? You get to a point where basically you've got the military guys left, some of the intelligence guys, because hey, I really intrigued by something that happened during October 7th. Let me just play and pause so I can get...
Because Hamas will play this game. I mean, Hamas have got the whip hand on this. They've got a large group of hostages, 230 odd.
There you go. Let's get in a good ejaculate face. So they got 230 odd. Now, did you notice a reoccurring theme come up over and over again? The music festival got hit. That got a lot of attention. Devastating, tragic, really juxtaposed Islamic fundamentalists coming over on paragliding or whatever, or parachuting over the border, landing in a music festival with a load of drunk high teenagers. That's just like awful juxtaposition that caused great devastation and got lots of attention. But something I noticed all during that period is I was watching nearly every single interview that was coming out, and a load of the people who they took hostages were army people. They were taking people hostage who were had military backgrounds. They were. I'm not sure if it's just that everybody serves in some way. I know there's, of course, there's military service and stuff in Israel, but it was every single person I heard that was outside the young girls, children, and the music festival seemed to have a link to the army, and that seemed very interesting. Like they had targeted it, like they had worked out where lots of army people were, and there also seemed to be like a lots of chasing people through bases and stuff. I think there was targets. I mean, they weren't just, oh, let's just go in there and see what we find. They had planned certain parts of it. They planned it very, very well. Because they succeeded in what they're doing, but they couldn't have succeeded without help. They couldn't have succeeded without help from Israel.
And they can release 10, 20, 30, but they'll certainly hold some hostages back, probably the military members, those members.
There you go. That's what I was going to say. So what I was going to say is they took a load of people from the military, and I reckon at the end of it, they're going to be left with 50, 60 people who are all military. And now those are the chips, because anybody remembers like the 1,500 hostages given out for the one military guy before. That's really important. People don't serve and won't serve effectively in a military for a military who does not see them as important and does not see the need to get back their members of the military in hostage negotiations if they get captured. The military people will stop supporting the military if they do that, and they know it. That's why. I mean, Hamas. You say, oh, it's all tragic. They killed. Yeah, what they did was awful. Yeah, and they're going to and loads of thousands of people have died for it. But as a process that sees some sort of has Israel have to bend over in a way they don't want to? That is this. They have made Israel bend over in a way they don't want to. And it's brutal how they did it, but it's a win for Hamas. That's a win. Even though loads of civilian casualties and stuff but they don't care about that. They're the extreme wing over there. They're not it's not like they're the moderate guys. The same over in the IDF.
Of the Israeli Defense Force that they took hostage, and probably some of the 20 Americans that they're holding or believed to be holding, because that will keep Joe Biden on the same sort of hook as Netanyahu.
Yeah.
So all of the hostages will not be released during the course of this conflict. They'll be held. Some of them will be held perhaps for quite a long time. The alternative is that the Israelis simply go ahead with the offensive. It's as brutal as it may turn out to be, and the hostages get the final hostages get killed, either executed or killed in the course of the offensive. But the idea of getting all of the hostages out is probably, and I'm sad to say this, it's probably unrealistic.
Is the slightly unpalatable reality here that this deal has given Hamas the upper hand, or should we consider that Hamas arguably had something of an upper hand anyway in...
I mean, it's sort of like they have to protect, because the audience they're targeting has such little knowledge about the subject matter, because they've been given such a restricted knowledge base, because the news is censored so carefully and besides that they don't know why this happened in the first place. It gave Hamas an upper hand in negotiating. It gave them the upper hand to take hostages, because there is no other outlet for negotiation. If there's no other outlet for negotiation, if there's no proper diplomacy, you will always see a form of violence being used to force diplomacy. That's what we've seen. October the 7th was a form of violence to gain diplomacy, and now we see diplomacy happening. Doesn't make it right. Don't shoot the messenger.
And then it had the hostages from the word go.
Yes, that gave them a great leverage, and that was partly why they took hostages. They didn't.
Partly why, of course.
The evidence is they didn't intend to take quite this many. They didn't intend to take
the
range of people, the older people, the babies.
I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. this idea, I do believe that they were aiming for military or official targets more than anybody else. But the rest of it is like, why not take them? If you've got the ability to take them, if you can hijack a bus and get a load of people on the bus, hold them hostage and drive them across the border, and that's an extra 20 people that adds to the negotiating value, why wouldn't you? I don't understand that. Evidence suggests. What evidence?
They didn't intend to do all that. They lost
Come on,
control
what's the evidence?
of their operation as soon as it began.
Again, they lost control. It didn't look like they lost control. It looks like they did an operation that was almost one of the most infamous in history now. I don't understand this lost control. They were going to commit. They were either out of control lunatic jihadists, like they try and paint them as, or they lost control then, and they're not normally like that.
Because they got much further past the border post than they expected to get, and the whole thing became a sort of spontaneous terrorist attack, which
It's
was
not
brutal
spontaneous
and completely beyond the pale of humanity. And they just went.
It's not beyond the pale of humanity, because we've seen genocide after genocide after genocide perpetrated by people who our government support, and you know, it's just a lot of this is just balls. But they got further along, they got further in than they expected to. Why did they get further in than they expected to? Why was that able to happen?
Berserk. And so they found themselves with a big group of hostages, and in a sense they lost some control over the whole point then, and they've been trying to work out since then.
I don't know about
how
this.
to handle this, but the pressure that Israel has been put under.
He's got no evidence. Oh, ejaculate face. He has no evidence for anything he is saying here. This is all just pasty. This is all just meat with pastry wrapped around it. None of this has meaning at all. It's just floating in the abyss. So, you know, he's making a load of assumptions. He's unable to give any examples at all. He's not giving out any examples at all. Nothing.
By the international community has actually given Hamas the whip hand. And so Hamas are able to use this now. They're trying to do two things. One is to, as it were, keep Israel on the back foot, and two, to forestall Israel's second phase operations against the south of Gaza.
Well,
and
of
so
course.
far, they've been reasonably successful at doing that. And so when Israel says our only objective in this war is to destroy Hamas, Hamas can be reasonably confident that though they're taking enormous losses and they are being dismantled in terms of their facilities and their storage and all the rest of it, and quite a lot of Hamas people have died, but Hamas will survive this. That's the way things.
They'll survive it because Israel are too busy killing civilians. That turns everybody against them, and they can't even see it. It's like the people in charge, the IDF tactical, and the people up in the top of politics are completely and utterly dead-eyed to how they look. They have no idea how they look. No idea at all. It's devastating. The devastation they've wrought on those people, they brought upon those people, are just awful.
Look at the moment. Hamas will survive.
Michael, it's really interesting getting your thoughts. Thank you very much.
No, thanks,
Michael
Mike.
Clark, visiting professor in defence studies at King's College London.
Oh, there
and a
you
distinguished
go.
fellow at the Royal United Services Institute. His
Yeah,
article is
definitely
online
ex-military.
for you, his analysis in full. After 50 days, Israel has lost control of the war.
Well, I have to say that that's some spin there. It's some spin. You're starting to hear slightly different tones here and there, and those tones will repeat. And the first places you hear this stuff break are the places where the establishment are most likely to use as mouthpieces. And Times Radio, I definitely think, is become a mouthpiece of the establishment. It's full on pasty time. Amazing stuff. Thanks for joining me on NEWSPASTY. Like, share, subscribe. I need help. I need help. Come help me. Come help me by sharing the work and sharing what I'm doing. Doing a lot. See you later.